Welcome to the new video of NeuroPhilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin. The comfortable lie. Imagine growing up in a world that teaches you one simple equation. Work hard plus play fair, success. Every story you're told, from the fairy tales of childhood to the graduation speeches of adulthood, echoes the same promise. Be kind, stay honest, respect the rules, and someday the world will reward you. It sounds noble, it sounds reassuring, and for most people, it becomes a guiding faith. Yet if you pause and look around, the evidence dismantles the myth. Who actually sits at the top? The most virtuous or the most ruthless? The faces that dominate politics, corporations, and history itself are rarely saints. They are strategists, manipulators, masters of perception. They understand that the game was never designed for fairness, it was designed for control. This illusion begins early. From the first day of school, we are conditioned to chase approval. Gold stars, grades, and good behavior train us to equate obedience with worth. We are told that humility is strength, that patience will be rewarded, that justice will triumph. But the world beyond the classroom doesn't play by those rules. Promotions don't go to the quiet worker who stays late. They go to the one who plays the politics of visibility. Empires aren't built on virtue but on conquest, negotiation, and timing. Friedrich Nietzsche saw through this facade. For him, morality wasn't a divine law but a human invention, a tool created by societies to keep order, to prevent chaos, to ensure that the weak would never challenge the powerful. He believed that behind every moral principle hides a strategy of control. Good and evil, in his view, were not eternal truths but social labels that protect the system. When we are told to be good, what we are really told is be compliant. The irony is that society romanticizes sacrifice while secretly rewarding dominance. The people celebrated as paragons of virtue are rarely the ones writing the rules. Those who truly shape history, emperors, inventors, revolutionaries, often begin by rejecting the very moral codes that restrain others. They refuse to wait for permission, they create their own legitimacy. Look closely and you'll see the same pattern everywhere. The humble employee waits for recognition that never comes. The scrupulous businessman loses ground to competitors who bend regulations. The politician who plays fair is replaced by one who manipulates narratives more effectively. The world applauds kindness but kneels to power. Nietzsche described morality as a mask, a civilized disguise for primal impulses. Beneath the politeness of society lies the same will that drives every living thing. The hunger to survive, to expand, to conquer. Lions do not apologize for hunting. Rivers do not ask permission to carve through stone. Why then are humans taught to feel guilty for wanting more? Because guilt is the leash that keeps ambition domesticated. The truth is uncomfortable because it demands honesty. It forces us to admit that the system isn't broken, it's functioning exactly as intended. The powerful maintain their dominance by selling the illusion that everyone has a fair chance. Meritocracy is the story told by kings to convince peasants that loyalty will one day make them royalty. It keeps the masses obedient, believing that justice is inevitable if they only endure long enough. But history offers no such guarantee. The world rewards strategy, not sincerity, cunning, not compliance. From the Roman Empire to Silicon Valley, every great power has thrived not through fairness, but through understanding the mechanics of influence, how to control perception, how to exploit opportunity, how to win without appearing to fight. This isn't a call to abandon morality, but to see it for what it is, a social contract that serves stability, not truth. The comforting lie promises that goodness is power. Reality shows that power defines what goodness means. Those who cling blindly to moral idealism often find themselves disillusioned and exploited by those who recognized the illusion first. If this feels unsettling, it should. The moment you see through the facade, you begin to understand why manipulators thrive and why integrity so often struggles. The rules you were taught were never written for your benefit. They were written to maintain order, to protect the existing hierarchy, to ensure that obedience never turns into rebellion. And yet, within that revelation lies freedom. When the illusion shatters, you are no longer bound by promises that never existed. You begin to see the world not as it should be, but as it is. A battlefield of wills, a stage where perception is power and belief is currency. The choice then becomes personal: remain comforted by the lie or awaken to the uncomfortable truth. Because once you understand that morality can be a cage, you can finally decide whether to stay inside it or to learn how to walk beyond its walls. The illusion of meritocracy. Since childhood, you've been told a story that sounds both inspiring and fair. If you work hard, act with integrity, and stay patient, success will naturally follow. The world, they said, is a meritocracy, a system where the deserving rise and effort is always rewarded. But step outside the comforting glow of that story, and you'll see the machinery beneath it. The truth is far colder. The system you live in is not built to reward goodness. It is built to reward advantage. Look at history. The most celebrated empires were not founded on virtue but on domination. Rome became great not through fairness, but through conquest, burning cities, enslaving people, crushing resistance under its heel. The United States did not ascend to superpower status through moral purity, but through wars, colonization, and economic control. And in the corporate world, the companies that now shape your daily life, Amazon, Google, Apple, did not reach the top by playing fair. They outmaneuvered, outspent, and often quietly eliminated their competitors. The pattern repeats across time and geography. The strong rewrite the rules to favor themselves and then sell those rules to the rest as fairness. This is the grand illusion of meritocracy, the myth that the ladder of success is open to everyone, when in truth it is guarded by those already at the top. They preach that hard work brings reward because it keeps the lower ranks obedient. They glorify humility and patience because it discourages challenge. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this mechanism with terrifying clarity. He wrote that traditional morality, the one that praises meekness, obedience, and restraint, is not a universal truth but a clever design. He called it slave morality. It is the morality of those without power, created to limit those who have it. It tells you that ambition is arrogance, that self-assertion is sin, that submission is noble, and because it feels righteous, people accept it without question. They believe that virtue means playing small and that greatness is somehow immoral, but the result of this conditioning is visible everywhere. Millions of good, honest people remain trapped in mediocrity, waiting for a reward that never comes. They tell themselves that the world will eventually notice their goodness, that fairness will prevail in the end. Yet the end never arrives, because while they wait, others act. While they obey, others manipulate. While they hope, others build systems that make hope irrelevant. The powerful understand something the moral idealists do not. Fairness is not a law of nature. It is a narrative, a story told to maintain control. Philosopher Michel Foucault expanded on this, explaining that power is never distributed equally. It concentrates, it protects itself, it builds institutions and ideologies to appear just while ensuring that true control never leaves the hands of the few. The idea of justice for all is the perfect illusion. It keeps people striving within boundaries that were never meant to be broken. And yet the moment someone challenges this moral order, society labels them dangerous. The ambitious are called selfish, the assertive are called arrogant, the independent are branded rebellious. But behind every accusation lies fear, the fear that someone has escaped the cage of social conditioning. Those who reject slave morality live by what Nietzsche called master morality. They see ambition as vitality, not sin. They understand that morality should serve life, not limit it. They create their own standards instead of submitting to someone else's definition of good. Look again at the figures who changed history. Julius Caesar defied the Roman Senate and reshaped an empire. Napoleon rose from obscurity to crown himself emperor. In our era, innovators like Steve Jobs ignored convention, broke norms, and redefined industries. These individuals didn't wait for approval, they imposed their vision upon the world. And for that they were both hated and remembered. The world pretends to reward fairness, but it secretly admires power. It fears dominance, yet depends on those who wield it. That is why every system, from governments to corporations, celebrates rules only until someone learns how to use those same rules to rise above them. Then the narrative changes. The powerful call it unethical, not because it is wrong, but because it threatens their monopoly. Meritocracy is the most elegant illusion ever invented. It keeps the masses working, competing, and believing, while the architects of the system quietly play a different game altogether. If this truth sounds cruel, it's because it strips away the comfort of innocence. But it also hands you something far more valuable than comfort: clarity. Once you see that fairness is a story, not a structure, you can finally choose, remain a believer in the myth, or become a player in the reality. Because in this world, success isn't awarded to those who deserve it. It's claimed by those who understand how the illusion works and dare to step beyond it. He will to power. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy lies one relentless truth. Life itself is not guided by goodness, happiness, or peace. It is driven by power. Beneath every act of love, every ambition, every empire, and every human invention, there pulses a single force he called der Wille zur Macht, the will to power. To Nietzsche, this was not merely the desire to dominate others, but the deeper instinct to expand, to assert one's existence against resistance, to overcome, to create, to grow. Every living thing, from the smallest cell to the grandest civilization, carries this impulse. It is nature's heartbeat. The lion kills not for cruelty, but to express strength. The tree breaks through concrete not from malice, but from necessity. Humanity, too, rises through this same will, but society teaches us to suppress it. From childhood, you're told that ambition is dangerous, that desiring too much is arrogance, that seeking power corrupts. You're taught to be humble, to follow, to wait. And while you learn restraint, those who understand the truth begin to lead. The difference between rulers and followers isn't luck, it's awareness. One group represses its instinct, the other embraces it. Nietzsche believed that most people never awaken to this force within themselves. They live in quiet servitude to rules that were never theirs. They wait for permission to rise, for validation to act. Meanwhile, the world moves forward, reshaped by those who do not wait. The will to power isn't granted, it's awakened, claimed, lived. Think of Alexander the Great. He was not born divine. He became legendary because he refused to accept limits. Napoleon didn't inherit his empire, he built it from will and vision. Even in the modern age, visionaries like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk operate from this same primal truth. They do not seek approval, they impose direction. They bend reality through belief, persistence, and control. The will to power is not about tyranny, it's about mastery. It's the discipline to shape the world instead of being shaped by it. But most people never reach that state because they confuse power with evil. They've been conditioned to believe that control equals corruption. This lie keeps them docile. It keeps them waiting for justice, for reward, for some higher authority to decide their worth. And yet look around. Power governs everything. The company you work for doesn't survive on virtue, it survives on control. Nations are not protected by kindness, but by strength and strategy. Even relationships orbit around power dynamics, emotional, psychological, or financial. The will to power is not optional, it is the invisible law of existence. The only choice you have is whether to repress it or refine it. Nietzsche saw repression as decay. When energy is denied expression, it turns inward and corrodes the soul. People who cannot express their power often grow resentful, bitter, or self-destructive. They moralize their weakness, calling it virtue. They glorify humility not out of strength, but because they no longer know how to fight. He called this the morality of the weak, a way to make power itself look evil so that submission appears noble. But the masters of life do the opposite. They channel their drive consciously. They use ambition as fuel, not shame. They don't suppress desire, they direct it. This is why history remembers them. They expand the world through sheer willpower, whether in art, science, or conquest. They live dangerously but authentically. Nietzsche urged humanity to move beyond guilt, to stop living by borrowed morality and start living by creation. To him, the greatest act of rebellion was self-mastery, to recognize one's instinct for power and refine it into art, vision, or innovation. The weak cling to comfort, the strong embrace struggle, knowing that greatness is born through it. Power, he said, is not taken, it is embodied. It begins with clarity, discipline, and the courage to act without waiting for permission. You don't become powerful by controlling others, you become powerful by mastering yourself. Those who command themselves inevitably command their world, so ask yourself, how much of your life has been lived by permission? How much potential have you surrendered to the illusion of virtue? The moment you stop apologizing for your strength is the moment you begin to live. The will to power is not cruelty, it is authenticity. It is the courage to become who you are meant to be, even when the world calls it rebellion. And once you awaken it, you can never return to the comfort of weakness again, because the world does not yield to those who wait, it bends to those who will. The psychology of power. Power is not merely a physical force or a political tool, it is psychological. It begins in the mind long before it manifests in the world. The powerful are not those who shout the loudest or strike the hardest, but those who can command their own emotions, control perception, and bend reality through restraint. Most people misunderstand power. They think it's about domination, about crushing enemies, controlling others, or standing at the top. But Nietzsche understood something deeper. The mind is the first battlefield. The one who masters himself does not need to conquer. Others follow naturally. The weak are ruled by reaction. They respond to every insult, chase every conflict, and waste energy proving their worth. Their emotions are puppeteered by others. The powerful, however, do the opposite. They observe, they wait. They respond only when it serves a purpose. Their silence unnerves opponents more than 1,000 words could. Power is patience, sharpened into precision. Look at history. Julius Caesar didn't build Rome's empire through raw aggression alone. He built it through strategy and timing. When his enemies mocked or opposed him, he didn't lash out. He smiled, calculated, and struck only when he could not miss. He understood that impulsiveness is the luxury of the powerless. The powerful operate through control. This principle holds true even today. The most successful leaders, negotiators, and creators are not those who react. They anticipate. They are not driven by emotion, they direct it. A CEO who stays calm during crisis wields more authority than one who panics. A politician who knows when to speak and when to remain silent shapes perception more effectively than one who argues endlessly. Power, then, is an art of emotional discipline. It's the ability to stand still while others lose balance, to remain rational in storms of chaos. This stillness is often mistaken for weakness, but it is the essence of control. Those who control themselves inevitably control the reactions of others. Most people, Nietzsche observed, are enslaved by their impulses. They believe they are strong because they can fight, but true strength lies in the ability to choose when not to fight. Every outburst, every argument, every desperate attempt to prove oneself is a confession of weakness. It shows that others can dictate your behavior. The master of power never reacts, he acts. In the modern world, this psychological game is everywhere. The workplace is a silent battlefield where composure is currency. those who can stay calm under pressure, who don't reveal emotion in meetings, who listen more than they speak, these are the ones who rise. They understand that appearances are part of strategy, and perception often matters more than truth. Even in personal life, this rule holds. The person who remains composed during conflict instantly gains dominance. The one who loses control becomes predictable, and predictable people are easy to manipulate. Nietzsche believed that most humans live as open books, exposing their fears, desires, and weaknesses through every reaction. The powerful are the ones who close their book, who let others wonder what they're thinking, who use mystery as armor. Think of how the greatest figures of history used this psychological mastery. Caesar, again, wielded patience as a weapon. He waited years before crossing the Rubicon, knowing that one decisive act would echo through centuries. Napoleon observed before he moved, striking with such precision that empires collapsed before realizing what had happened. Their victories were not accidents of fate. They were the result of emotional control transformed into strategic power. This mastery extends beyond history. In the modern age, the leaders who endure are not the loudest or the most flamboyant. They are those who can appear calm while orchestrating storms. They radiate quiet confidence. Their words are few but deliberate, each one measured for impact. They do not need to convince. Their presence convinces for them. The tragedy is that most people confuse power with noise. They believe shouting makes them heard, that emotion proves sincerity. But the more you reveal, the easier you are to read, predict, and control. The powerful reveal nothing they don't intend to. Their calmness creates unease in those who depend on chaos to feel strong. The psychology of power can be summarized in one rule: control yourself, or someone else will. The world is filled with those who manipulate emotions, advertisers, politicians, lovers, enemies, all thriving on your reactions. The moment you stop reacting, the moment you master the space between stimulus and response, you become untouchable. Nietzsche's vision of mastery was not about domination, it was about transcendence, to rise above impulse, above fear, above the need to be understood or approved of. True power is invisible. It moves quietly, speaks rarely, and acts only with purpose. And so the lesson is simple but severe. Those who cannot rule their emotions will always be ruled by those who can. The balance of power. Power, when left unchecked, devours its wielder. History is littered with the remains of men who conquered the world, but could not conquer themselves. They rose like gods and fell like mortals because they mistook strength for invincibility. Nietzsche understood this fatal pattern, the way power intoxicates, blinds, and ultimately destroys those who worship it instead of mastering it. Julius Caesar, who united Rome through brilliance and calculation, was undone by the very empire he built. The senators he once controlled with charm and fear eventually turned their daggers on him. His mastery over others became arrogance, and arrogance clouded his sight. He forgot that power, by its nature, provokes envy, fear, and rebellion. Napoleon Bonaparte followed the same path. His ambition redrew the map of Europe, yet his hunger for more led him into the frozen grave of Russia. His downfall was not defeat by his enemies, it was defeat by excess. Even in modern times, the pattern persists. Corporate titans who built empires through daring and intellect often destroy themselves through overreach. They manipulate markets, silence rivals, and climb to heights where they believe rules no longer apply. Then one scandal, one misstep, one moment of exposure, and the empire collapses. Their brilliance turns to tragedy because they never learned the art of balance. Nietzsche called this the tragic irony of power. The same force that elevates you will consume you if you cannot contain it. Power is a double-edged weapon. It can liberate or enslave, depending on who wields it. The fool thinks power is permanent. The wise see it as a flame to be guarded carefully. To master power, one must first master humility, not the humility of submission, but the humility of perspective, knowing when to stop, knowing that no victory is absolute and no control eternal. The strongest rulers, the most enduring leaders, are those who recognize the limits of domination. They understand that real power lies not in endless expansion, but in strategic restraint. In Nietzsche's eyes, the superior individual, the Übermensch, was not a tyrant. He was a creator, a shaper of reality, who balanced will with wisdom. The true master of power uses it not to destroy, but to transform, to mold chaos into form, to bring vision into existence. He knows when to strike and when to step back, when to command and when to let silence rule. He uses power as an instrument, not as an identity. The weak are slaves to morality, the reckless are slaves to power. Both serve something outside themselves. The balance lies in freedom, the ability to choose your own limits, to wield control without being consumed by it. The moment power defines you, you become its prisoner. Consider the great strategist who knows that retreat today ensures victory tomorrow. The wise general doesn't fight every battle, he fights only the ones that matter. The powerful mind does the same. It doesn't waste energy proving superiority. It acts with purpose. Knowing when to yield, when to rest, when to rebuild, these are not signs of weakness but of mastery. Balance is the invisible crown that separates conquerors from cautionary tales. In the corporate or political world, this principle remains unchanged. Those who rise too fast often fall even faster. The quiet ones who understand timing, who know when to concede, when to let others shine, when to turn enemies into allies, they are the ones who endure. They survive because they do not worship victory, they use it. Nietzsche never glorified cruelty. He never praised mindless domination. He warned that blind ambition, like blind faith, leads to ruin. The true test of strength is not how much you can control, but how much you can let go without losing your center. Balance is not weakness, it is wisdom refined by experience. So what does it mean to live by this truth? It means learning to hold power lightly, to wield it with clarity, not greed. To be ambitious but not desperate, to pursue greatness without becoming addicted to applause. It means understanding that winning is only half the game. The other half is sustaining what you've built without letting it devour your soul. In the end, Nietzsche's lesson is both brutal and liberating. The world will always belong to the powerful, but only for as long as they can control themselves. Those who lose balance will lose everything, because in the grand chessboard of existence, victory is never final and defeat is never absolute. The game belongs to those who can rise without arrogance, rule without cruelty, and walk away still whole. That is the ultimate mastery, the balance between strength and wisdom, ambition and restraint, chaos and control. Power, after all, is not taken once. It must be maintained every day, quietly, intelligently, and without illusion.